You're listening to the Fresno Housing Spotlight, a behind-the-scenes look at how Fresno is working together to create housing opportunities and changing lives. I'm Tyrone Roderick Williams, CEO of Fresno Housing, and welcome to the show. Now, the goal of our podcast is to share what's happening at Fresno Housing and how we are collaborating with our community partners in the city and the county. There's some great things happening, and our podcast is going to be one of the many ways in which we share what's going on and how we're actively engaged. Oh, but we want to kick off this first podcast with our dear friend, Matthew Grundy, who is Deputy Mayor for the city of Fresno. Thank you for joining us on this historic launch. It is so good to have you. I'm glad that you are a part of all the things that are going on in the city, and it's been a joy to work with you. So this is our time just to share how we are actively engaged in addressing housing issues in our community.
Tyrone, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me here today on this so important first episode and podcast as we discuss Fresno housing. It's an honor to share a table with you. And I'd like to ask, I want to start things off today by asking you a series of questions, just so we can get to know a little bit more about you, your vision, and who you are. So I'll start. I just want to ask, who is Tyrone Roderick Williams? Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, I'm originally from a little small town in Texas called Crosby, Texas. I claim to fame that there were more animals than people in our town, and it was a great place to grow up because it was a community that supported our residents. We had one elementary school, one middle school, one high school. But while there, growing up, I am the fourth son of four. So my mom was the only female in the house. My dad was a science and math teacher, and he dibbled and dabbled in construction. And my mom, she was a vice president of a hospital in nursing. So between the two of them, there grew a passion for architecture and construction, for caring for those who were most in need. And the two merged when I decided to go to college and become an architect. I went to Prairie View A&M University. Shout out to historically black colleges, wherever you are.
Our HBCUs.
And while there, really decided I wanted to use architecture as the platform to build a career. I wanted to know how to design it, how to construct it, how to finance it, how to sell it, how to lease it. And someone said, that's called real estate development. Well, I was like, well, that's what I want to be. I want to be a real estate developer who not only builds buildings, but builds the lives of the people who occupy those buildings. And so, Matthew, that's what set me on my course. And after I graduated from Prairie View, or as I was thinking about it, they said, well, if you really want to be serious about this, Tyrone, you need to go to grad school. And at that point, I had been in school for 5 years. I was like, the last thing I want to do is study. I want to go somewhere and earn a living. And they said, well, there's one school in the nation where you can learn how to do architecture, construction, and community development in real estate, and that's MIT. And so to make a long story short, I applied, got a full scholarship, and that's what really set me on the course that brought me to this seat and this table today. And I have, from those very beginning days when I said I wanted to do all those things, it's amazing, Matthew, I'm doing them. There are very few people who in college say, this is what I want to do in my life, and then years later, be able to say, my dreams have been and are being realized. And so that's a little bit about my background, that I'm just one incredibly grateful guy. That sums it all up.
Wow, wonderful. And I know that you're giving us the cliff notes, so I appreciate you doing that. but it's just very powerful and inspiring to hear the journey of the baby of 4 who became a builder, who's living out his destiny, his calling in life. And so I just want to thank you for saying yes to those things that you probably had bubbling up in you years ago, and the value that you see in the role that you're playing here today. So I just want to say thank you. I'm so glad, again, to just be here to be able to chat with you. Thanks for sharing that part of your journey. Next question I have for you, as we're talking about calling and purpose. You're here in Fresno.
Oh.
You're like me. I'm a transplant, right? And I want to ask you, what is it about Fresno? What led you to want to come to Fresno and specifically serve in Fresno's Housing Authority?
Well, I know for sure that the whole trajectory of my career has positioned me for such a time as this. I won't go into all of the many jobs and positions that I've had, but every last one of them have enabled me to sit in the seat as the CEO of Fresno Housing. Now, Fresno Housing has an incredible reputation. I am, had some great predecessors who, even on a national level, brought attention to Fresno Housing. But what's unique about Fresno Housing is that it does its own development. What is not commonly known here in Fresno is that we are the envy of so many housing authorities around the country who have to depend on other developers to see their housing goals realized. Here in Fresno, we have a phenomenal affordable housing development team that rivals any development company in the country.
Agreed.
And to have an opportunity to take all of the skills and passions about community and empowering residents and being able to do the development is unique. And the fact that we are serve the city and the county. Prior to coming here for 7.5 years, I was served in Sacramento. And our agencies were very much aligned in the same types of activities and serving multi-jurisdictional municipalities. And so there were similarities there, but there was an opportunity I didn't want to pass up. The other thing that really attracted me, and I am as more passionate about Fresno as I have ever been, is the level of commitment to partnership. Every city has a past that they're addressing. But here in Fresno, we understand the issues of the past, but there is a strong sense of joining hands and aligning goals and visions to create a better future, a one Fresno. And so that's unique in an environment where there's so many conflicting and condescending views and opposing elements of society. I see something unique and different in Fresno, and I wanted to be a part of it.
And we're glad that you are part. We welcome you with open arms. I think for those who have met you, it's so easy to extend the olive branch to you because you're so personable and you're so interested in being engaged authentically. And I just appreciate that about you. And so for those of you who haven't met Mr. Tyrone Roderick Williams, and you're listening in today, I'm telling you, you're in for a treat when you get to meet him in person. I want to kind of continue on this line of questioning. When you're talking about some things related to why Fresno Housing Authority, you're talking about vision. And there's a saying that I live by that I love, an old statement that says, without a vision, the people perish. And we know that you and your agency are bringing life through safe and decent and affordable housing to those who need it most. But without that vision, the people perish. So tell us about your vision.
Oh, my vision. Well, the great thing back to you is through all of the opportunities to serve in other cities that included Houston, Boston, Atlanta, Sacramento, and now Fresno. That vision has been simmering and percolating for a number of decades now. And now I'm able to actually see it become reality. My vision is one in which our agency really is at the forefront of addressing the issues and needs of our residents throughout the county. And I understand that there are issues that are in the city, but then there are other issues that are different in the county. And to be able to address those in their unique context, whether it's housing for farm workers or housing for families or housing for seniors, I've been involved in so many different efforts that, one, my vision is that we are seen as an asset and not a liability. What do I mean by that? There are so many differing voices and approaches, particularly in the middle of the housing crisis, that my vision is that we extend our hand to any and everyone who has a sincere and honest commitment to addressing the multiplicities of complex, overlapping and integrated issues that has brought us to this point. That we are a voice of reason, that we are a voice of integrity, that we are a voice of innovation and creativity, and that not only are we a voice, but we are an ear to hear, to listen, to take in suggestions and ideas and synthesize that into something that can be implemented. So that's number one. Number two, I want Fresno Housing to be the best place to work in Fresno. I know Mayor Dreyer and all your team, I know that that's a goal that many have, but I intend for Fresno Housing to set a new standard on what it means to be in a workplace where you are valued, where your skills and experiences really are used on a daily basis to make a real difference in the lives of people and their families, where we've got workplace balance, where you aren't so stressed out about your job that the rest of your life comes apart. My vision is that you are a well-balanced, happy to come to work, energized in your profession, your career, and your advancement, and that you are an ambassador of goodwill for our agency. The other part of our vision relates to our residents, which are at the center of everything that we do. Everything that Fresno Housing does comes back to one thing: our residents. And we understand, Matthew, that many of our residents come to us at critical points in their lives where they need someone to help them with their housing issues. Whether it's our public housing, whether it's our tax credit or housing that we develop, whether it's our housing for the unhoused, whether it's our farm worker, there is a housing crisis for all folks, regardless of income in Fresno. But our commitment is to our residents. One, to provide the highest quality of housing that we can provide through development, and I just shared about our incredible development team, but also through property management. We want to make sure that you cannot tell any of our owned developments when you drive by from any of the other market rate properties. That we have no stigma, that our property management is excellent in the way that we maintain our properties both inside and out. That our commitment is to provide a highest level of quality professional service and respect to every one of our residents, regardless of their income or the circumstances by which they ended up coming to us for assistance. The other is looking at how to provide ladders of opportunity for those residents and those families who right now may be in unfortunate financial situations, but our goal is to help everyone who wants to make a difference and move up the economic ladder to look at removing every possible barrier so that we have access to education, whether that's completing a GED or a high school, and then moving on to college, whether that's a community college, four-year college, or technical school, getting a certificate, whatever puts our families on a pathway to family self-sufficiency, that's what I'm committed to. So those are some elements of my vision. It's much broader, but this is a podcast, not a documentary. So I'm going to pause there, but just know I'm here, and our team at Fresno Housing is about changing lives for the better and extending our hand to others to be a part of that whole effort.
Can I just do this? Because let me tell you, I'm in. When I hear these things, just as a human being, the amount of care that we should have for our fellow neighbors and loving others that are within our community. I don't know who, after hearing what you just shared, wouldn't want to partner with or be served by Fresno Housing Authority. So I want to thank you for your leadership and your sharing of those things. You mentioned something earlier just about the state of our current housing situation here in Fresno. We're obviously not dissimilar to other cities and states across the union in that we are in the midst of a housing crisis. Mr. Tyrone Roderick Williams, would you please be so kind as to share with us a little bit more about what's your approach in addressing Fresno specific, and I speak more broadly, not just city of Fresno, as you mentioned, the unique needs of those outside of the city of Fresno proper, across the county. What's your approach at addressing our housing crisis?
One, my approach is acknowledge that there is a crisis. And in the middle of the crisis, many times there are numerous approaches or recommendations as to where to begin. My approach is start with what we do at Fresno House. One, we are a developer. And so what we are looking at is every opportunity, and as a developer, there are opportunities for us to acquire land as well as develop sites that we already own. We are doing a full court press to look at where are the opportunities to, one, enhance the units that we already own, preservation. Many of those units need rehabilitation. They've reached their useful life and it's time for a rehab, so to speak. And so we're looking at what we can do to identify those dollars and support those properties. Number two, how do we expand our new development opportunities? Because we've got to be able to bring more units online quicker. And so what we're looking at is ways in which, one, through our traditional means of development, which includes low-income housing tax credits, which is a whole bureaucracy all unto itself. But where are those other opportunities where we could develop housing without wading into the bureaucratic processes of the low-income tax credit funding? So we're looking at the city and everywhere else we can look for opportunities to find resources that we can deploy quickly and get housing developed. The other side of that is looking at what we can do. That's our development side. So we are exploring every possibility and expanding our partnerships, which I'm really excited about, because we're currently working with our community college system in developing housing for youth who are on probation or aging out of foster care, or just vulnerable youth who want to go to school. Talk about family self-sufficiency and ladders of opportunity. We're looking at how to provide housing for those individuals, and at the same time, we're looking at how do we support building housing for farm workers out in the county. And farm workers are an essential part of all that we do in our society. Without them picking and providing the produce that we depend on every day, we would be in terrible straits. And so my commitment to our farm working families is stronger than ever. Then we're also looking at what we can do with our housing choice vouchers. The largest percentage of the current families that we serve get assistance through a housing choice voucher. That's better known in some areas as Section 8. But we depend largely on the private market, landlords allowing or accepting those vouchers. And so we've been advocating and have made some movement with HUD on looking at what we could do to expand options, rental options for those who are having our vouchers. And so one of the things that we're looking at is we are not leaving any rock or opportunity unturned as we use every resource that we have, every connection that we have, every partnership that we have to attract every resource that we can, and listening to others who may have ideas that we can then embrace to move forward as well. So that's how we are approaching this very challenging time.
Ooh. Well, that's So well said. And thank you, first of all, for having me again. Thank you for opening up and sharing more about your background, Tyrone. Thanks for sharing more about your vision, your strategy. And I think, the Fresno Housing Authority and Fresno Housing in general is fortunate to have you as an important part of this region, of this state, and of this nation, leading the way at Fresno Housing Authority. So just want to say thank you. Thank you for inviting me, allowing me to be here. Again, for those who don't know you, I have the pleasure of knowing you, but for those who don't know, your amount of care and compassion and authenticity is something that we desperately need in a challenging housing environment. And we either need the cloning device, or we just need to keep fanning the flames of Tyrone Roderick Williams. So thank you so much. And this has been a great first podcast.
Well, Matthew, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you to the mayor and all the members of the city council. I've received a warm welcome, but even more important, I know that we have a positive working relationship as we tackle these complex challenges, and that's so important. At Fresno Housing, partnership is key to everything that we do. We are not the Lone Rangers, we're not the know-it-alls, but we definitely are people who extend our hand and welcome the opportunity to work with others. And it is a joy to work with you and our city partners as well. And I look forward to a long and productive relationship with you, the mayor, our elected officials at the city, and our residents of the city of Fresno. So, well, I can't believe it, Matthew. We've come to the end of our time of our first podcast. This has been the Fresno Housing Podcast. And to learn more about Fresno Housing, visit fresnohousing.org or follow us on social media. Thank you to our guest, Matthew Grundy, Deputy Mayor of the City of Fresno, and thank you for listening.